And today we're having an exclusive with the former president of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency John Ejekum Kufuor. He was president of this republic between 2000 and 2008. We'll be interacting with him so that we find out about life after the presidency, what he has been up to, and we'll also tease out from him some few national issues. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Rebecca. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me find out from you, how has life been after the presidency?
I'm a happy man with a happy family. We want to live in peace, and that we can friendship with all comers. So it's been good and very eventful, not only in Ghana. I've traveled the world since retirement or stepping down as president, because perhaps I'm not retired. And I've traveled, not sorts of gallivanting, no, with a purpose and on invitation from the United Nations, from international organizations like some NGOs on sanitation and water for all, based in Washington, from another group based in Switzerland called Interpeace, from a group called Global Citizenship, and with people invited from around the world to review the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because we believe in the global village, to see how the world, riding the United Nations and acknowledging and deploying the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, how the nations of the world are being true to these institutions to help bring up the centrality of the human being with dignity, all over, whether you are red, black, gold, green. Once you are human, you should be entitled to a measure of dignity. So anywhere and everywhere around the world, you can move with your chest out.
Right, but do you have any fond memories of being a president of Ghana?
Many fond memories, but I tell you, I cherish every minute of presidency, but I do not regret finishing my term. I do not hanker after power. I do not want to go and impose myself on people and ride them like I'm their overlord. No. I was just happy to have been given the chance to serve my people, my nation.
Right. Let's talk about corruption.
Yeah.
What would you profess to be the panacea to tackling that issue, especially in Ghana?
You are talking panacea. Panacea is a cure-all. Eradicate. I'm a pragmatist. The other word for corruption is decay. We are born fresh, we grow, and we decay. So it's perhaps a big issue that we must look at for a society to organize itself and govern itself well, in a society that is free. I do not accept imposition. The Constitution talks of sovereignty being with the people, meaning democracy should be the principle of governance. Because we are so many, we have to use representative government and governance. You give the office of, say, president or minister or whatever to anybody, say even a manager of some corporation, and you do not have a regulatory mechanism to ensure that whatever is entrusted to such a person for governance is accounted for within the law, the framework of law. You do not check that the governance, which is for the people, is transparent. You come up, think too much. Very likely, human beings being who we tend to be acquisitive too. Very likely, before you know, such a person will be cutting corners, feathering his nest, and to the disadvantage of. So our Constitution has it all. Principles supporting Constitution, transparency and accountability. Fix these places. But then you need the institutions to use to enforce the transparency and accountability. We've got institutions like Parliament, the checks and balances thing. I do not like the hybrid system we have where ministers sit in the legislature. There should be the executive of president and his ministers who formulate policies and take the formulation, the policies to Parliament, the representatives of the rest of people to sieve and sift, see whether these policies you want to make laws for us, they really would serve the general interest of the people. So Parliament should be the watchdog over the executive. And then we have the judiciary, which is there like the institution, not supervisory. It should be there to ensure that the president, the legislature, everybody operates within the letter and spirit of the Constitution for the good of the people at large. And for that reason, it is the one institution that is vested to tell us what the Constitution really wants to tell us. Well, Constitution should be an organism, a living, because it captures our spirit, our ideas. The sovereignty that we have is what we've transposed into the Constitution to define government and our roles within the polity. So that's true, and this is why this should be there. The executive would formulate and also implement. Once the laws are made by the legislature, implement. Through the implementation, the executive must have the law enforcement agencies, the military, the police, the whatnots. Again, the executive runs the ministries, employment, contracts. So you get a minister whose signature to fix a road might make a contractor a millionaire. You put the minister there in office to do this very big work, thinking of laying roads to open the country. And he gives contracts, perhaps through tendering, procurement and all that. But what it means is once he signs for the contractor who is competent and selected through tender to do the work, the contractor as a private sector businessman would make a fortune. That's what business is for, to make profits. And then the ministers pay, take home, minister with wife, children, all that. 4,000 Ghana cedis, 6,000 Ghana cedis, 10,000 Ghana cedis. Given the cost of living, with a wife, with home to cater for, the extended family systems, very likely this minister will go behind scenes and tell contractor, hey, my friend, this contract we've been given, it's about $1 million or so. I know your margin for profit might be 25%. What do you do for me? My pay is only 10,000 Ghana cedis.
In fact, are you saying that we should take care of our workforce well so that we can...
The pay system, the incentives for everybody to play their role. I'm not saying the minister should be given the profits of, but don't you think it's outrageous that the man with the pen to sign the contract for the person to go and work to become a millionaire gets such a pay. But what I'm trying to say is we haven't really sat back to look at human nature and social demands. We haven't sought a balance, a fair balance that will make the minister, the manager, whoever has something that seems a privileged position, focus on his work to do it without going behind the scenes to do unacceptable things. Corruption is bad. It distorts. We must fight it, but we must not fight it with slogans. We must sit back and see, look, so much is entrusted to this man to oversee such and such a work. How do we ensure that he is taken care of reasonably, comfortably, without him wanting to go behind scenes to compromise? Because immediately we begin to take from the contractor, he too finds ways and means to overload to maintain his 25% profits. You get me? It's a very convoluted, complex thing. And we talk too much corruption, which destroys, without really seeking to define it and working in such a way that people are just happy to stay in their lane and do the work they are paid to do efficiently and well, and taking reasonable pay for that without their wanting to reach out, unless that person happens to be a naturally greedy person. I believe the naturally greedy person really is the dangerous one. That, and if we work to isolate the naturally greedy and then seek a balance, pay the minister well, let the contractor who took his risks, borrowed at his own risk, also keep his profits. And before you know, things are working. Yeah. But we don't take time to look at these things. In fact, we are becoming like a nation of hypocrites. We don't want to know the truth, and we can't talk about the truth. Or we say corrupt. Politicians are corrupt. We leave out the civil servants. The civil servants might even be smarter than the politicians in this regard. And then the contractor who would come slavishly fawning, immediately he gets his money, he too runs away, and then before you know, we're taking the monies out, they're building palaces in places that we don't want to talk about outside Ghana. So I think we must sit tight and just be realistic. Get to work from our knowledge of humanity.
Right. How about the issue of sanitation and energy crisis? How do we get Ghana to become an industrial hub or a tourism hub where we haven't tackled these issues?
Sanitation, I talked of the well-being of the human individual, starting with nutrition. If, say, our pregnant wives and mothers, we do not feed them the right balance of food, we do not give them the right diets, then the embryos who become us, we come out with deficiencies. We've learned that on the continent of Africa, we suffer stunted growth, meaning our brains haven't developed to the extent they should. And then our bodies too. The children who get so stunted of the whole world, stunted children, that people who come about without proper nutrition, Africa suffers about 1/3 of the whole world. So how can Africa stand up shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the world, Europe, who are being scientific and caring for nutrition well? So that's a problem. Let's look at nutrition. Feed. That's where the free maternity care thing came in. How do we get our mothers and our wives to look after themselves take medical advice, dietary instructions. So even as they take seed, the seeds are prepared to come out with the right power of brain and body, so the humans become productive. They can learn better in schools, and then when they develop the muscles to also have strong immune systems to fight diseases. But when you have even produced and you do not take care about your sanitation, filthy areas, we do not sweep, we do not bath ourselves well, then we allow the germs to attack us. The immune systems will go down, and no matter who you are less productive as humans. So sanitation is crucial. But then the trouble is, Accra was planned originally perhaps for 1 million people. As we sit here now, we are about 6 million people. The planning has not kept up pace with the population explosion. Accra is sprawling all over now. Go and tell me whether the gutters are made. And Accra happens to be flatland. So as the rains come down, the mountains around it, they stagnate here. Mosquitoes, this is the natural habitat of mosquito. And like my friend Isaac said, mosquitoes do not leave visa. Before you know, they attack you, malaria comes, and then, So we have this planning, the governance. We have to take account of this. And then when we talk infrastructure, the laying of proper drainage systems, the roads, the building instructions, the aeration of houses, all these things come in for sanitation. But we seem to be lagging in governance, and we must catch up to deal with it. And when we talk of Dumsor, it's the same thing. Akosombo was built with capacity for, is it about 900 or so megawatts? With the extension into Pong, it became like 1,200 megawatts. We added Bui. People do not want to talk about it. We are with capacity for about 400 megawatts. But now our needs, because we want to industrialize, you can't industrialize without energy. Our needs are still outpacing the energy capacity. And so this is why we need the leadership that would have the vision of where we want to go. You talked of industrialization. You want to be industrialized, you stop talking state controls, too much state controls. Socialism is outdated. Communism, go to China. They say communist China. I tell you, the amount of capitalism you see there now, even America is getting nervous about it. How? Because the people, their leaders came to see, if you want to be a leader in the world, you must industrialize. The world has become one market. Produce to sell and grow your wealth. It is only with your wealth you can give the education your people need. You can give the health care your people need. With the infrastructure, build your rails, and it's wealth. How do you do it? You must generate wealth. You do not conquer poverty with poverty. You must create the wealth to overcome poverty, make life better for people. So you want to industrialize, the planning should be there, and you see that you do not depend exclusively on the states. After all, what are the resources of a government? Taxes. Unless you want to tax your people into perdition, taxes should be enlightened. Because you make your economy attractive, and there's money floating around the world looking for a home where it will be invested to generate profit for whoever is bringing the investment, and also to leave some for the destination economy and its people. If the government would set the framework in place, I tell you, the investors would come, make legitimate profits, which the government would then take its fair share from, and at the same time provide the services. If you want to lay a rail system, for instance, or build an airport, or whatever, it's partnership. That's how the world is working now. But then your government should know how to negotiate, so they secure the fair share of the nation for the nation. And allow whoever brought his profit also to go with his margins legitimately. When we do this, it's a chain thing. It's a chain thing. You see that more and more money would come into this country to help us develop fairly legitimately without the corruption we are talking about. Cite examples. Look at Singapore. Everybody talks about it. It's the leadership, the vision. Look at Switzerland. What has Switzerland got? Tiny country, but go there and see the quality of life and development there. I have so much hope for Ghana, and I'm so happy for the last election, because for first time I'm convinced that the people voted not on basis of parochialism, tribe, religion. So they voted for solutions to problems, the challenges, the poverty, the sanitation, the diseases, the ignorance. Everybody wants quality life, and I believe this is how. These are forging a nation out of otherwise disparate, scattered entities that have not been looking out to where the world is taking us, into the global village of one market, the whole world. China, America, Europe, Africa, we are one market. If we want to be part of it, then we must prime ourselves to be very competitive. It would come with high education, good health, knowing how to be attractive, to attract other people to bring their money here to invest, because it will be profitable for them and it will be profitable for us.
But so far so good, 60 years for Ghana.
So far so good. I believe we are in the right trajectory, but I'm not a teacher to give marks in this respect. Only thing is, I'm still hopeful that our country is going the right way, and especially with the last election, I believe now the people are coming to believe that they are really the sovereign authority of this land, and that they will make their leaders work to put us in the right direction.
But looking at the economic indicators, where do you think we are falling short? And governance indicators?
By borrowing by government and going private sector away with nuisance taxes and so forth and so on. Now we are identifying all these things, and I'm hoping the government will have the courage of its conviction to implement the laws. And I'm also hoping, because Ghanaians want the transformation, they will share in the vision of the government. And yes, we have to bite the bullets so we get, well, move in the right direction. We took HAPEC to put Ghana into the middle income level. Without HAPEC, we wouldn't have gotten there. Given the state of the economy then, we can do better now.
Thank you so much for interacting with us. Thank you so much for being a part of this program.
Well, welcome to the round table. Earlier we saw an exclusive interview with former President John Kufuor. We know that despite Ghana's good governance and democratic credentials, corruption still remains cancerous in our society. It can be said that corruption in Ghana is not just a mere perception. It is now very worrying, as different sources of data point to a higher corruption index in Ghana. Empirical evidence also associates extreme poverty and inequality to high levels of corruption. The economic loss suffered by Ghana because of corruption is enormous. How can we as citizens help deal with this situation? Because you know what? Some have argued that corruption induces cynicism because people begin to regard it as the norm over time. Again, it is said to undermine social values because people find it easier and more lucrative to engage in it than to seek legitimate employment. Do you agree? What should or must be the most effective approach to fighting corruption? Who must lead the way and show commitment in the fight? Where should it start from? We ask these and more on your award-winning show with me, Rebecca Ewa, and I bring the thoughts of those in the Inky fraternity alive. My friends are here. I have with me Kwame Danso Echampo. He's with Star FM. Kwame, welcome.
Thank you.
Also with him is Alfred Hughes. Alfred Hughes is with us here at the GBC. Alfred, good to see you.
Good to see you too, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you, Alfred. You know, I simply cannot leave you, my respected viewer, out of this conversation. You can send me your text right here on 02444754422 on what you think about the issue of corruption. And also keep this number in mind. Write it down somewhere because you need to call into the program so you can interact with us. 0501-552-729. 0501-552-729. When it's activated, call into the program and share your thoughts with us, and follow us on our Facebook platform, Reporters Roundtable. Follow us on Twitter at RoundtableGH, and remember to send me that text because I can read it right here on set. Kwame, we just heard former President John Ejekun Kufuor on corruption, and he is saying that if you would want us to deal with this canker, then we'd have to take a look at the pay of people. Do you agree with him?
Well, let me first commend you for that detailed interview you had with the former president. And I listened to him, and I find out that the opinions he shares on those matters are very idealistic. Ideally, you would assume that when salaries of workers do go up, the pension to want to demand more from society or from people that they deliver service to will reduce, and so you can have some amount of quality service that comes at a very justifiable cost. But the reality is that our own situation in Ghana hasn't reflected that reality. You recall that when single spine was introduced and the security services had their first batch of the appreciation of salaries, there was so much attention on them and there was so much enthusiasm in the service, and the hope among Ghanaians was that the salary rise among the security service, for instance, was going to reduce the tendency for some police officials to take bribe and take petty cash on the road. Obviously, we are witnesses to the fact that it hasn't changed, and in fact it has gone up because the cases at which it is reported has gone up. We know and do hear cases almost on daily basis about police officers or some security agency officials taking monies to allow a driver without a license to drive through cars that are moving coverings on our road to pass through. Beyond the police service, we have heard even in the health sector the fact that it hasn't changed people from the attitude of going to move people from a queue for them to go ahead of others that they came to meet only because they could pay more. It hasn't improved quality service delivery in the country. So the president's position is idealistic, like I said. It's good, you would imagine so. Of course, there are people in this country who earn relatively well compared to other sector workers, yet still we haven't stopped being corrupt as a people. And so people who are greedy will continue to be greedy even if you give them a room load of cash. You understand? I do believe that this attitude is a cultural thing. The moment we begin to give special places to people who we do not know their source of wealth in society, will begin to affect young people growing that in this jurisdiction, in this country, if you just pop up in a community and you begin to drive a Range Rover, when everybody knows you take home less than 700 cedis or 1,000 cedis or whatever, and suddenly you are driving a Range Rover and the whole society is looking for you, mothers want their daughters to marry you without knowing where the source of your revenue is. That's a problem, because a young guy, a young Sunday school child, or a young guy attending a mosque, seeing that the man who drives the biggest car is giving the church leader, when offertory comes, is the person that's asked to come and sit on the front pew, when we do not know where his source of revenue is, that person automatically would think that getting money is good. Obviously getting money is good, but I think we should be more concerned about the source of money. So culturally, we should be more concerned about people who exhibit opulence when we are not sure or certain about their source of revenue. When you're able to cure it from that base, then growing up on the national scale, we will not be so anxious to, glorify people who are showing money when we do not know where their source of revenue is. If people are genuine business people, if people have worked themselves through the ladder at corporate institutions and have gotten up there, and they are deserving of whatever they are using, that's something we should emulate and commend people for. But suddenly you find yourself in situations where everybody is big and everybody wants to be called a chairman, everybody wants to be called a big man, when you genuinely do not deserve the worth you're emulating. It should be a concern. If society cures it from that base, trust me, it will be held up there. Culturally, we should disorient ourselves from that kind of attitude.
So the pressure is coming more from society.
Exactly, societal thing.
Robert, what's your take?
Well, I agree with him to a very large extent. Unfortunately, I didn't have the privilege or opportunity of listening to the ex-president, somebody who I have a very huge and enormous admiration for. But then I beg to differ from some of the things that he said. Actually, I guess there has been a lot of research into why corruption is so endemic in Africa, and some of the views that they brought out was the list on that ladder. If you have to draw a graph of the reasons why corruption is endemic in Ghana, it's about remuneration. There are a lot of factors which are very huge that goes to the heart of the reasons why we have corruption in Ghana. He did mention some, right? I believe that in as much as it's cultural, what you call, I don't want to use the word tribalism because that one has a negative connotation. It is ethnicity, right? Ethnically, we belong to some kind of family, societal groups where people believe in external family relationships. So the moment somebody gets into power, right, from zero to hero, the kind of dependency syndrome that really triggers off is unimaginable, right? That once is an MP and it comes from my family or even comes from my maternal's village in Ekumfi Muna, everybody would troop to come to. I have a very bad experience. Once my maternal mother's maternal village, some of the people saw me on television one day, and I know they are watching. They trooped here to GBC in a queue asking for, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm using myself as an example so that at least I don't fluster anybody or cause any repulse anywhere. So that one is ethnicity. Then what you have is political chronism. Political chronism has to do with contracts, high profile corruption, right? What they call kickbacks, right? If you are a contractor, you belong to a particular political party, that's where you have contracts. If you don't belong to the same political colorization, you don't have those contracts. And if you want to get persistent and consistent overflow of contracts, then at least you have to pay some 10% to the government in power to ensure the flow of contracts. They also have greed, like you said. It is attitudinal. I've always said that you don't need an economic recovery program. You need an attitudinal recovery program. The good book, the Bible, says that the birds of the air, they do not sow, they do not reap, but the God Almighty feeds them and clothes them. The lilies, they are not, you cannot even clothe the lilies as beautiful, as gorgeous as Solomon actually had those golden raiments. The way the lilies and the roses are clothed, it is incomparable to how Solomon in his what they call religious height actually was clothed. So I think that it is greed. The Bible actually in Corinthians states these things: licentiousness, debauchery, fornication, adultery, idolatry, and all those things are part of the reasons why we are struggling to amass wealth. I believe that apart from the Bible, other faith-based organizations like the Quran, the Muslim religion, also have some of these admonitions. I cannot specifically and distinctly state where I can quote where the Quran speaks against some of these things. So, but it's all about materialism, right? So we've talked about ethnicity, then nepotism. Nepotism is also another reason why we are. I agree with him to a large extent, because there are people who have very, should I call it sumptuous pay checks. But at the end of the day, we hear them trying to, corrupt their fingers with ill-gotten money. And that one is also in the Bible. I don't know why
that is what Kwame talks about, greed.
Yeah, biblical.
The person is greedy,
yes,
no matter
this
what.
morning. You remember the story where the prophet Nathan went to warn David after he had taken Uriah's wife, Bathsheba, right? That there was this man who was very rich, who had a lot of flock of sheep. But then he was not satisfied with it, but he just went to a very poor man and took his flock. The moment David said, no, this man needs to be punished, Nathan just pointed to him and said, it is you. So corruption, talking about high-profile corruption, is not those in high-profile positions like ministers and those people in public service cannot be excused. Then, of course, you talk about petty corruption. People who stay away from work, do not come to work regularly, they are not punctual, do petty thievery, we call kleptomaniac, are all also there. So when we are talking about corruption, let's look at it broadly from the perspective of high-profile corruption and petty thievery. What we call
that is the
kleptomaniac.
The classifications
yes,
of
the classifications of corruption. And when we are looking at it from that angle, then of course we can really appreciate it and situate it within the context in which we are discussing it. Most of the times, what we wrongly do is that when we talk about corruption, we focus it on Article 72, is it 72? Office holders alone. But then there are a lot of people who are rotten and smell more than a scam under the gutter, like this Article 72 office holders.
You know,
and what I want His Excellency respectfully to know that idealism is different from being idealistic. Idealism is different from being idealistic. You understand? The reality on the ground is that our demands, the economists will tell you that our demands, our wants are more than our demands. Our paychecks cannot take us home. In as much as our paychecks are rising by the day in a mathematical ratio, the prices of things and inflation is moving at an astronomical rate. So the point is that we cannot match it together. There's a whole lot of imbalance. The Vice President, Mahmoud Baumia, doctor, will say it does not add up. It doesn't add up.
Okay.
You know,
Kwame, he talked about petty corruption. But we also know of grand corruption, political, depending on the pecuniary value and the sector that it occurs. Can you share with us, Amy, on those other two and why the need to even do that desegregation, why it is important, especially in Ghana?
Well, Bex, if you notice that the graduation from petty corruption to the political ones, the difference, the synergy is so slim. Okay, they are so almost unidentifiable, because you see, it is the petty corruption that graduates into the bigger ones. Now, if normally in the common sense of corruption we think it's about money, but essentially corruption is using an invested position or using your power that has been invested in your hands for a personal advantage. It could be in fiscal terms or not, okay, but of course all of them is a certain compromise of an attitude. Now, according to the African Development Bank report in 2016, Africa loses $148 billion to corruption.
Yes.
And that is more than how much we get from foreign donors in a year. Do you understand? So collectively, we lose money to stealing, thievery, than we actually get in support. Many African countries, our budgets are supported by foreign donors. Meanwhile, in here, in our respective countries, we are blowing our monies away through sources that we all know are wrong, but we continue to watch on. Now,
in fact, then we are able to deal with it, then of course we can be self-sustaining.
Exactly. Let me come back to Ghana. In Ghana, there are some two reports advised. Now, Imani Ghana is saying, is claiming that we lose $3 billion to corruption alone annually. Now, if you break it down, it means that we are losing $150 million to corruption alone per month. Do you understand? So in a year, we are losing $3 billion to corruption. Now, the CDD is saying that we are losing $1 billion, but whatever the case may be, we have a major problem with corruption. And we all do know how our money is going to go down. We go to places that, you know, to render, often our target is at the bigger guys, the politicians, the big guys sitting at the top there. But really, majority of the people who take from the states are people in the middle level. Yeah. You go to register a business, you go to do projects at hospitals, you go to do, and then people consciously stifle the process for you. Now they stifle the process, and you are supposed to pay 5 cedis to facilitate a process that you have already paid 10 cedis as a normal fee. Now when we go there, we do not consider that as corruption, but that is corruption.
Yeah, that's corruption.
Imagine that person dealing with 100 people in a month. How much is that? How much of monies that are supposed to be used for other purposes have gone to one person who do not deserve those monies? You understand? People go to supply appliances for hospitals, NHIS. People go there to, collect claims, and drugs that are sold for 5 cedis, because the state is paying, people inflate it to 10 cedis, 15 cedis. Okay, because that person is not a minister who is signing the big check, we are not thinking about it. But that person is making claims thrice in a year, and now if he's making 1 million cedis or 50,000 cedis on every claim he has made wrongly, imagine how much that money is. That means that the state is going to fall short of how much money it needs to reserve for building of more hospitals, because the claims for hospital drugs is going higher unfairly. And we will not talk. Sometimes I have been to NHIS before, a hospital before, around my community, around Ashoman. Now I went there and I was holding an office card, hospital card, and when I went there, the nurse was taking care of me, and she said, they gave me the drug, and they said the drug is how much? They said the drug was, I think, 50 Ghana cedis or so, and they said, oh, but this one you are not paying from your pocket, let's make it 75 Ghana cedis. And I'm like, you can't do that. It's not fair to my conscience. And let me tell you, our conscience works. Anytime you are cheating somebody of money, your conscience tells you, unless you decide to ignore it. But often it's not.
But some people have conscience which is seared. So they once your conscience are seared, you lose some kind of, there's something up here in your brain, some screws which are losing. So you don't act normal. See, yes. Bex,
it is important that we begin to take our minds off just the bigger contracts that are signed at the governmental level. Okay. The political
aspect.
Okay. If our attention is there, we will gradually ignore the very attitudes, the very actions that individually we can take to kill the system before we get to the top there. Okay? We all have a role to play. Because the guy at the top there, every 4 or 8 years, he will move on. But the guy in the middle structure, at the big structure, he's going to be there for like 20 years, 30 years. And so if you are unable to deal with that situation, you are going to live much longer and in the generational terms than the guy at the top there. Okay, so you see, the petty ones for me are so critical. Because if a police officer allows a guy, a rickety car, to move on because of 2 cedis, that car can end up killing 4, 5, 6 people. Now, those 6 people, in most cases, are people who take care of other people. And so you are taking breadwinners of about 6, 7 families out. Now, those victims, what are you going to do? Yeah. So think of it that way. If you begin to think about it in a broader way like that, we'll begin to understand that every little thing we do matters. It's not just about the bigger one, me, what I do matters. If you allow the mates, everything in certain societies, okay, the relevance of people are not measured by how much wealth they have. It's about integrity. What is the integrity they have? what can they do even if nobody's watching?
Great.
And until we're able to get to a platform where we all can know that regardless of who does this, I don't have to, if I am supposed to be here at 10, you don't have to call me and tell me that, oh, if you are able to come early, I'll give you this. No, there's something special package for you if you're able to do this. The moment you do that, you are beginning to compromise attitudes, and eventually it will get there. And so we should holistically be looking at all that before we get to tackle the top there. People should begin to have a satiable attitude. This insatiable attitude of everything is not enough, everything is not enough, you can never get anywhere with it. You understand?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Alfred, let me find out. Kwame has touched on bits and pieces of everything, but let me find out from you the impact that corruption has on, one, economic growth, investments, and development. And he talked about the latter bit, which is the inequality gap that it creates.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. You see, my readings have told me that Africa, and Ghana to be specific, is infected with 7 diseases. The first disease is widespread corruption. The others are farming, inter-ethnic, tribal wars, and so on and so forth. There are 7, but then an integral part of it is corruption. And like Kwame rightly pointed out, I wanted to quote that figure. Ghana loses $148 billion on corruption. These are the tangible ones. What about the intangible ones? The intangible ones is about lateness, it's about irregularity to work, it's about some kind of laxity and like a desiccal attitude and lustre when you come to the office. You are there, you come very late, but you are the first to leave. You don't contribute anything towards the work, but then when the check is ready at the bank, you are the first to get there. You understand me? When all these things are computerized, you realize that the $148 billion is just, I mean, just a drop in the ocean. Right. And it is quite irritating, if not provoking, to see that a country like Ghana, where we go in for millions of dollars of loans, to have people siphon that same money that we have gone to collect, cap in hand, from the European countries, and you still come back and out of greed siphon them by way of corruption. That is what actually really baffles me. Then talking about the impact, right? We talking about the basic needs of the country. Fundamentally, our health, the circumstances of our health conditions are in a state that there's nothing to write home about it. You're talking about education, we're still grappling with the issue of people sitting under trees, dilapidated school buildings. You go to certain health institutions, you know, look at the kind of should I say unnecessary and needless battle over the Legon hospital. But there are certain hospitals in the northern part of Ghana which have no doctors, or there are certain districts which have no medical facilities or medical posts. The question is, wouldn't all these things, this money which is being lost, push there in order to, I mean, get some of this infrastructure? Talking about agriculture, in this 21st century of ours, we are still using hoes and cutlasses, where there's a need for us to transform our system of agriculture into, what do you call it, the use of machines, combined harvesters, mechanized farming. That's what I wanted to talk about. Look at the state of our roads. Recently, there have been some needless carnage on our roads. It is only when you are, excuse my language, and may she rest in peace, you are an ebony ebony reigns, is that the word? Some of us have lived those times. So yeah.
I say that old?
Yeah, but then before then there was a VIP bus. Yeah. About 11 people or so died. Did you hear about it?
Teacher Mante.
Yes, Teacher Mante. But we have become like firefighters. We become so reactionary. We are not proactive. We just talk about the issues. All of us, it becomes a talk shop. We skirt around the issues, and when the embers die down a little, then of course everybody goes to sleep, and until the chickens come home to roost again before we are triggered to do the things. I cannot just fathom that. I don't get it. You understand me? I'm not claiming perfection or infallibility, but I think there's a need for us to do things right. Talking about these basic things, when we are able to ensure that there's proper monitoring and supervision, that no money is siphoned. You know, I use the word I think all of us laughed. The financial hemorrhage of this country is too much. All these things can be rechanneled into programs, projects and activities that can inure to the benefit of our country. The greatest, for me, the greatest crime that has been perpetrated on Africa and in Ghana is not slavery or colonialism. It is wanton corruption, big time corruption that has sacked. You can also even relate some of this corruption to, so at times when they talk about reparations for slavery, I laugh. No white man went into the bush to fight and coerce the slaves. It is our own chiefs, people who led them to calico, kako, and ram, drink. And when the chiefs get drunk in the bush, they show them where the villages, where they can. So villages with another village fought. And do you know the booty of the victorious village was slaves? And slaves were sold like yams at Kokombo market. The more muscular you are, the higher price that you are attracted. Is it not corruption? So when the corruption began, it is not, there's the modern type of word, corruption, where educated people, that is why some people are even talking about white collar crime, which is corruption, as being emanated from. You go to certain villages, you dare not, pick something which is for another person. I had the opportunity of leading some expatriates to Kennedy, Japan's Asen somewhere. I was supposed to be the mediator, the translator, yes. And we went to a place deep in the bush. You could walk from here to Teshinungwa, and we haven't gotten to the end of the plantations. There are these pots of cocoa which has been cut, and the beans poured on the floor with palm, use a palm branch, no palm branches. The front of plantain. Yes. For 3 days it was there. So I asked one farmer that, why wouldn't somebody come to steal? Because there's no opening and there's no security here. He spoke in Twi. They had the info you understand me? But then we who are educated, at times we feel we are far better than them. Yes, you are far better than when it comes to literacy and numeracy.
Okay,
so these are some of the things we are talking about, trying to know the impact. The impact is not positive, it's very negative, and hits at the core of the kind of things that we need. The necessities, the basic necessities, the doomsday, the lack of schools, the widespread illiteracy, the widespread unemployment amongst the youth, and so on and so forth. The debt that the national health insurance people are owing is all about corruption. If we're able to put our acts right, and we have leaders whipping us into line, monitoring and bring the back.
Let me bring in Kwame so that Kwame can continue from where you just left off. Kwame.
Well,
impact.
I think that
3 areas: economic growth.
Yes, we can
investments,
bemoan
inequality,
our own attitudinal deficits and deficiencies as long as want, one of the examples that came to mind when he was speaking was that, but would you blame the people when your uncle becomes a minister and tomorrow he comes to you and comes in a Toyota or some small car? The whole family will laugh at the person. They'll be asking you, why aren't you seeing what your colleagues do?
Why people do it? There's a president in Nicaragua. Who uses a rundown jalopy. Uruguay, yes.
Uruguay,
and he lives in the rural area.
But see, will you blame the people? If the system, the economy, is structured that you have to use extrajudicial means, if you like, to achieve results, if you are results oriented, what do you do? How many times haven't we, as journalists, reported on the situation at, say, DVLA, if you need a license? How many times haven't we reported about passport office, if you need a passport? How many times haven't we reported about business registration and stuff like that? If you go to apply for a business, to register your business, and it's going to take you 3 months to register a business when you have obtained funding for it, and you have to pay your stakeholders, you have to pay your investors, and you're in a hurry, you need to get this thing going, and there are timelines. And you know, in other jurisdictions, they are registering business within 3 hours. In Japan, within 2 hours, your business is registered. You go there, you give them the details, within 2 hours, everything is done. Go and try it in Ghana. We are told that the system has been automated. Now, you start filling through a process, and they tell you that you need to insert a certain number. Now that number is not generated automatically through the machine. It is manual. Now, so it means that you cannot fill that section of the registration form on the internet. You need to go and apply it through human beings. Now that will take you how many weeks? Because you need to pay somebody who knows somebody who can facilitate the process. When you do that to people, genuinely, this is about the economy. Now, if you do that to people, and I know that I can go to Becky, and Becky can circumvent the process and still get me the results because I genuinely want to do business, I will do that. It is human nature to want to get results. So if the system will frustrate me, and I'll go through behind the system and get somebody to pay somebody 50 cedis, 10 cedis to get a number for me, I'll do so. Now, if I need a passport office, passports that can be done within 2 weeks, you have to wait until 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to get it done for 100 cedis. And somebody said, look, if you genuinely want your passport, give me 300 cedis, I'll get you a passport. If you're in a hurry, you need to go on that trip to do a business. Are you going to wait for 6 months because you want to be a good citizen? Let's be honest. The system and its managers should begin to think of how to be efficient and structure the system in such a way that people can get things done when genuinely they want to get things done through the fair system. In America, we always compare ourselves to the European countries. The kind of frustration people go through here, people don't experience it there. Because the system is such that they understand the human flaws and human challenges and know that if you make it difficult for people to survive genuinely, they will find means to survive. People will have to survive anyway. So if I'm applying for some, didn't you hear a story about in America, the Ghanaian ambassador there, they commissioned there. Now we needed the passport printout had run out there. So if you're looking for, I think this is last year. Because I had a friend who wanted to come to Ghana. Yeah. He couldn't get a passport there because his forms had run out, and the form over there, it had run out. How is that imaginable? That the whole embassy there had run out of the prints, so we can't print passports.
So they had a very important business to transact in Ghana.
You have to wait. Where does that happen? So if that person has a means to get the passport, to come and do $1 million business, and I have to pay 100 cedis or $100 to get that business, won't you do it? Is that not human? Even if you're a pope, you may be inclined to doing it because you want to get
the
results.
Catholics will not be happy.
you know.
Yes, there was ash when.
So that's the thing. You see, Becky, it's both ways. It's both ways. Corruption hurts the economy, but the managers of the economy must understand that it is high time we remove those bottlenecks that frustrate genuine business people. Yeah. People come to town and they want to meet a minister to discuss business with. You go and write your form, you go and apply, fill the form. Maybe you have gone through that, because if you want an interview, what you go through. Now you go and fill the form. Genuinely, other places, you'll be in the office or home and they'll call you. It's out, your time is due, you should come and minister at this time. In our own situations,
is that one not the lack of appropriate technology?
It's part of the, you see, it's corruption. You know why? Because the people who are supposed to be in charge of those forms, having to hear those reports, that will tell you that you'll meet the minister, but if you're able to sort somebody out quick, you are likely to meet the minister faster. So all those processes, you cannot ask people to stop being corrupt when the system is structured in such a way that you need to be corrupt to succeed.
It's
Okay, so this is a reporters roundtable.
So it's the land of the survival of the fittest, right?
It is a reporters roundtable. We are looking at a very serious issue in Ghana that there has been efforts to fight it at all costs. That is corruption, because it is draining our economy. And you can also join us on. You can also join us by sending in your text on 02444 75422, 02444 or you can also follow us on Facebook, Reporters Roundtable, because currently we are streaming live on Facebook, and you can send in your comments there. You can also watch and give us your submissions, and when the phone lines are activated, you can call into the program on 0501 552 729, 0501 552-729. But Kwame, let's talk about how the rising corruption decreases citizens' incentive, especially to pay taxes or honor their tax obligations.
You see, part of the examples we've given is that, see, if I pay my taxes all the time, I pay my road tolls when I'm passing by the roads, I expect that when the roads are broken, they will be fixed. Okay? If I go to hospitals, my taxes are taken out, and I expect that when I need,
I have Bridget from Tema on the line. Kwame, let me put you on hold. Hello, Bridget.
Hello. Hello, Rebecca.
Bridget, can you please lower the volume on your set so that we can talk?
Please, okay. Please, I want to contribute to the program on corruption being discussed. I think that most of us, I know that when you say someone is corrupt, you might be able to substantiate those allegations. But it seems that in our part of our world, Africa in general, it is a deciding factor as to who becomes an leader, whether it's in the role of position or heading or becoming a president. I think that most of us, or including journalists, when they see that you drive a certain kind of vehicle or something, they don't look that you are corrupt. I think that we need to come up with findings. Whether the person has still a general report, whether the person has been corrupt or not. But I think we should be mindful. Illegal, our ministers are not legal or corrupt just because they are living in your own life. It's already been established even before we took political action. If you watch the person when you ask Mr. Maybe he thought that the former president, with the corruption allegations, they were all professional. When it comes to those people are corrupt, when you don't have it has any factor. So we should generally, we should try as much as we can to put correct investigation. I realize that the average Ghanaian cannot do things without going through the right process. Even when you are at the back of the day, you are all joining the key. Some people just come from India and then just join the key without going through the right process. So I think that is the thing that if you really want it to be the average Ghanaian, the ordinary Ghanaian, might be able to uphold integrity. Sometimes you don't want to wake up and collecting integrity. If you are able to have it now, you are able to be people to help us eradicate corruption in the country. I urge journalists to do stories that will bring evidence and then we can put the case together. You feel it's correct.
Thank you, Bridget. Talk of prosecution, and let me give you the opportunity to tackle the tax obligation of citizens first. Then we'll come to prosecution, because I think that is where we have gotten to now as far as corruption is concerned. Yeah.
I was saying that if I pay a tariff for electricity, if I pay taxes for health, and I pay taxes to be protected, and I notice that when the roads are broken, they don't get fixed. Every now and then I go to my hometown. 20 years ago, the roads were bad. Again, they are still bad. On the Temamoto recently, they're fixing it. It used to have a problem. Many parts of Accra, even in Accra, where I live, there are places that are even in town, still the roads are not fixed. When consistently I see that, I mean, naturally as a human being, I don't feel encouraged to continue paying the taxes. I
have James from Dansoman. Hello, James.
Hello, madam.
Yes, James. Good to have you on the round table.
Yeah, I'm really sorry the program that you are discussing or you are holding there. That's very good. Because corruption actually is damaging our economy. Corruption is creating a whole lot of problems in our system. Now, I'm very happy your guest actually made a whole lot of references with regard to TVLE, passport office, and other areas. I'm not really happy when it goes to our health sector. Go to the hospital, the government representation. For you to be able to see a doctor, sometimes the nurses even take away from you. I don't want to mention, other polyclinics I've been to. I know I went to one of the polyclinics and I was told that, the doctor is still as good, and for that matter, if I want to attend, if I want the doctor to attend to, I need to put the thing on my feet. How do you call it, when I went to Fuda, I was told by the attendant that, you see the queue if I want to get a doctor, I need to put the thing on my feet in my Fuda.
And did you do that? James, did you do that?
No, I wanted to see if indeed it was. I wanted to see if indeed it was true. I had it. So I paid the 50 Ghana, and in fact, when I went there,
you paid to test the waters, or you paid also to have your way so you can go quickly? Because if you paid to do that, then you both are corrupt.
No, I paid what actually was happening.
Okay.
So when I went there, when I went to the doctor's office, I realized that there had been a box whereby those who pay 50 Ghana, their orders have been put in that box. So the doctor will call, those who come with the health insurance, you mentioned terrible, and then you mentioned inspection box, our two. You see, not there for a while, in fact, I became very sad for what I saw at the, So also is everywhere in our...
So what must be done, James? What can we all do as a country, as a people?
Now, what I think the government has to do is they need to set up a committee. When they tell them, they'll not even take it. They'll tell you to have evidence, bring evidence, even in the face of evidence, people will argue with you. So they need to set up committees to go to those areas, they guide themselves as patients, and then they see what is happening there.
Okay.
It's not to continue to perpetuate against and at the end of the day, we'll end up in ourselves.
All right, James. Thank you so much for also calling into the program. James has touched on you talk about roads not being repaired, and it becomes a disincentive to pay your taxes. But our callers have led us straight into an area where we can touch on, that is how to deal with corruption. We know there has been several agents, because when they call in, they all think about the political elite. So it's at a bigger area. We've talked about we've talked about petty corruption, and we've talked about political corruption. So it runs through. It's not just the politicians who are corrupt, as has been established there. I have Clement, please. So let's think about ways in which we can deal with it, especially now that we are looking forward to the special prosecutor. Clement. Hello, Clement. So sorry for keeping you on the line.
No worries.
Clement. Yeah, he has responded, yeah. Clement.
It's really at one end, and the other end, you know, it's kind of some way. I don't know, especially, let me, for example, talk about the police. We've been doing our best to curb this menace. Yet, on our roads, day out, they take bribes. How much do they take? 2 days. Okay? So, how do we go about it? What do we do? For me, I think as citizens, we all need to be up and doing. All we need to do is to start saying, for example, I'll still go by the police. You're on the road. You are supposed to check my documents, whether everything is intact. Okay? Yes, the drivers or some of us citizens will say that, oh, for me not to waste my time, let me pay this 2 cedi off. Okay? So I have to pay to him so that I go score whether my documents are correct, whether I have to license or not. And I think we as citizens must stand up for our rights. We must do what is right. We can do this. When we as citizens are doing this, then we can hold our leaders accountable and responsible when they default.
Okay. Okay, Clement.
So I think it's a good program. Let's keep up the campaign and other greetings to my schoolmates.
Hey, Clement, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Clement, for reaching us from Kofodia. But yeah, you know him in Kuko. Okay, all right, okay. What were you, the dining hall prefect or what?
I was prep prefect.
Prep prefect. All right, that will be a discussion for another day. But Mr. Hughes, what will you say will be the most effective way or approach to fight corruption, bearing in mind the issue about the special prosecutor?
I think...
Think about it. I have Emmanuel from Accra. Yes. Hello, Emma. Hello, Ima. Good to have you. We are talking about the effects of corruption on national development. Where do you think it should start from? Who must lead this way to fighting this issue?
I think we should fight from the leaders, because what I think the leaders are showing good character and attitude. There are some people who have good idea about the country. Now, this is the leader who come to power. What we are interested in is getting cars and you create an impression that when also you get a job, that's what we should do. For instance, sometimes you are on the same hospital and get a job and 10 months or 11 months you want to. And we see a president giving about $9 million, cars worth $9 million. Now, those for the best I'm not clear. What is the intention? What intention do you claim? And one time I went to the hospital, and one time I was told you were supposed to be given a coupon. And when I went, I was unable to take the coupon. So when I was supposed to go and get the coupon, when I went to the department where I can get my coupon, the woman told me, because I still late, so you want to take 3 days. Of the if the coupon was supposed to be 30 days, we want to pray. The days that I was not able to come on time to get it, you want to take all the 3 days out of it. And I asked them, so these 3 days that you are taking, where are you going to give to the first? Who are you going to give? And he said that no, you should have to keep it. By that time, tomorrow I was not, I think our intention didn't come back, but the problem was I couldn't make it.
Okay.
So you create this impression that so we didn't what I was doing, although the work that I was doing is not good. It's some impression that they are good or they want to work. But you see some people at the office, the impression is because you are not, what you do what doing, it's not working. So that needs to be changed.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So if you just tuned in into this program, then we are talking about the effects of corruption on development, especially in our beloved country Ghana, and we're trying to find out the causes, the consequences, and what we can do about this whole issue, because we know that this issue, corruption, is draining our country of so much, and if we are able to fight it to the letter, then this country will prosper. So in case you just tune in, this is what we are discussing, and you can join us by phone on 0501-552-729, and you can follow us on Twitter at RoundtableGH, and like our Facebook page. We are streaming live on Facebook now, Reporters Roundtable. Send your comments there and we can read it. I have someone from Ashaman. Hello there. James Ashaman. Hello, James. James, you're live on the Roundtable. Grateful that you've been able to call. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Please go, yes. James, I can hear you. Please, you can make your submission, sir.
Yes, I'm very interested in the program you are discussing this morning. Yes, my contribution is that the fight, it needs to start from all of us, not from the leaders at all. But you know, there's one very big thing all of us are able to understand. You know, if it happens to me, I'm an ordinary person and I come out to talk, nobody listens to me. Also, if I have a problem at the police station, I will go to the police station to make a complaint. Then the police will turn around and say, if I want my case to be heard, I should go and buy someone for him to go and take the person I made a complaint against. The meanwhile, we are paying taxes, and out of the taxes, the government is providing all this for the police. But they will want you to think there was something before they can create an issue for you. You know, all these things are what we call the corruption. You see, so if it happens to me as an ordinary person, a little person like me coming out to talk, somebody will tell you that is what they do. Everyone, I mean, we all know that's not the right thing. You need to actually, you know, all the things, all of us need to talk about. And then if it happens to me as an ordinary person and I'm talking, please, people should come around me and let them actually define whatever that they are doing is wrong, so that it will not look like it's just wrong. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much, Mr. Hughes.
Yes, I agree with him. It should be a collective responsibility. It should even go beyond the responsibility. It should be an obligation.
Okay.
It should be our religious obligation to ensure that corruption is nipped in the bud, if not then minimized to a very large extent. You see, but then we're talking about collective responsibility. Then the state or the government has a role it should play. We as individuals also have a role we should play. We as individuals have an integrity to protect, right? If you're a Christian and you say that is it 75% Christians in the country, and if corruption is endemic, then I think Christianity has failed. Those who sermonize on the pulpit every Sunday, they go through all night. Presently, Christians are going through 40 days of fasting, the Orthodox churches. And at the end of the day, corruption is still endemic. It is knee-deep. Then, of course, I think Christians, to a large extent, have failed, because the Christian principles, as scriptural, the scriptures or the biblical knowledge has shown, all these things about bribery and corruption are inimical to an upright Christian. But you see, I don't like it when we always focus on
to all religions, right? I'm not sure other religions also.
Yeah. You see, I don't think it is right always to hammer. It is true that some elements within the police.
I have Musa okay. From Dansuma. Musa. Hello, Musa.
Hello.
Musa, you're live. I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Musa, please, you're talking about corruption. Your take, Musa. Musa, could you kindly lower the volume on your set? Hello, Musa.
Yeah, I'm
okay, thank you.
Yeah. I say, me the poorest, me the people, me the one that was needed. Corruption is killing us every day. So we need help. We need help. Look at America. People go want to take international America. The Americans are well organized. This new institution people have created. We are ready to help. Every politician property, this is not property a politician and got it before coming to power, maybe the president or not empty. People we have to know exactly where their riches are working from.
Okay.
If they come and power them, do that or that thing, they cannot suffer, and we are suffering. Nothing is going on. What is corruption?
Okay, Musa.
Like mathematics and something. We are suffering.
Okay, so Musa has, yeah, like the ordinary man, the impact he has on the ordinary man, that is what he is sharing his frustration.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Albert, let me, okay, you have to finish that one quickly. Let me take that.
I think his frustration has taken him to a level of disillusion, and I really pity it. But I don't like the comparison with always America. America had its independence in 1876. It's 242 years now. America, apart from going through some colonization under the British for just a few years. We went through colonization for 150 years. Before then, there was slavery, about 100 years. 252 years. We just had our independence.
Okay, Mr. Hughes, my time is almost getting closer. So let's leave the history for now and let's give that. But I have somebody on the line anyway before I come back to you so that you give me the most effective way, because we have had Shraj, we have the Attorney General, we've had Yoko and all of those. There's another way we want to fight it. How effective would that be? Hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, sir. Your name, please, and where you're calling from.
Please, I'm Douglas, and I'm calling from New Town, Accra.
Thank you, Douglas. Your submission, please.
Yeah, so corruption has been so embedded in the system, and I think society has also failed in a way. Because one, today everybody respects the rich man. So if you don't have money in the society, so people also try to find ways and means to get to a place, make people happy with them. So in a way, society has also contributed to the corruption that we are facing in the country. And even before the deportation, society has made the effect of society already on good. So it begins to show when they get a position. And everybody in society, most people in society are corrupt nowadays. Let me give you an example. I am a young boy, and because there are no job positions, I found a farm, a sheep farm, and with a tricycle, I go to get feed over the sheep. I'm stopped on the road by the police to pay money before I am allowed. I've been stopped about 3-4 times, and because I always pay on that time, I am delayed for about 5-6 hours before I'm allowed to go. So it doesn't help the country to grow. So we have to all work towards it. Even though yes, politicians are corrupt, but everybody, especially the top politicians, a lot of people are corrupt. Go to the hospital, especially the rural areas.
Okay.
The USAID gives us Malay person for free. So if you go there, patients come to the facility, pay for it before they are tested for malaria. It is something that even we cannot afford, and someone has given to us for free. We are telling it to people, and we are doing that. So it is a responsibility of every Ghanaian to stand up and say, we want our country to develop. So if we want our country to develop, we have to stay away from corruption and always make sure that we only praise people who are rich from genuine reasons or who get rich through genuine means. And stop always praising people. Just recently, a law in the British Parliament has to resign because he was late for Parliament. But in Ghana, when that happens, we stand up and people, a lot of folks is telling them, yes, that's how their society is made up. So if you do something wrong, you either apologize and resign, or like the laws work against you. But even as you start people working for overcoming, that is why. So everybody in Ghana has a role to play in the fight against corruption. Until then, corruption will always be in the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Douglas. That is so Mr. Hughes, let's touch quickly on the special prosecutor bit that has been introduced to fight corruption.
Yes, I think it's a step in the right direction, though it came with a lot of controversies and contentions here and there. But I was happy that at the end of it all, he received the unanimous votes and I believe that before the end of the weekend, probably early next week, is going to be sworn in as the first special prosecutor, right? I think that in order to let him succeed, he should be given the kind of independence. He himself has proven beyond all reasonable doubt that he's a very principled person, and that he will never allow any foreign influences, be it that.
I have my last caller from Ashama Mohammed, please.
Okay.
Please bear with me.
Yeah.
Hello, Mohammed.
Yes,
Hello, Mohammed.
Good morning.
Yes, I can hear you say.
Good. My suggestion is the corruption is not only the police standing by the roadside collecting money from drivers. There are a lot of honest that is creating corruption, and that corruption is even in the life of people. Example, somebody just got a car sent by his brother or his family from abroad. That's it, he became a driver. He just went to the DMV that he needs a license. He will never be tested, he will never be trained. There won't be any instructor over there to see that he cannot drive. There are people there called Guru Boys. You just tell me which one you want. You want international or you want local? Or I want international. 6 years. You go in and set up everything for you, and then come and take you, you take a picture, that is it, you become a driver. And then be on the streets, kill people, and then there will be people who will say, oh, I never have no thoughts. When you look at it, it's not about that. It is the government. Because before you even get a learned permit, qualify you to become a driver, the things you got to go through before you get to that point, before the person gets into your hand, you're supposed to be a professional before you be on the street. Number two, the police have no any of the computer on the street or in their car to check your license and hit the name and see that your license is correct or is not correct. That one too is a fault of the government.
All right.
So the police will take money. It allows you, a driver who doesn't really know the road sign, all he knows is the street is good, let me speed up. Kill people. All this is the beginning of one corruption causes a lot of things.
Someone's selfish interest.
Somebody saying they should talk to the boss. Maybe the boss are mad at that. This is ancient thinking. Tell the government to fix the road. And tell the government nobody will be on the street without a genuine license, a trained, a qualified driver. It doesn't matter who you are.
Okay, so Mohammed, the point is made.
Yeah.
The point is made.
My point is, it's not only the police being on the street. Collecting 50% is the corruption. The corruption has different points. Like I'm saying,
okay.
The license. You understand? They should hit the side too. They will save lives.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you. That we shouldn't just think about our selfish interest as people. Let's get to look at the bigger picture, because when you take that small money today, it can also affect somebody's life tomorrow. Simply, that is what Mohammed is trying to say.